I slowly started noticing how legitimate all the MAC fans took their teams, I guess. Maybe the first game that really stands out to me, I think the Little Caesars Bowl between Western and Purdue a few years ago in 2010, 2011, something like that. That game stood out to me as being pretty important, and that kind of helped spark my action outside of, the team I rooted for. Welcome to Mac Football Forever. My name's Alex Alvarado. That's Caleb Carter. We're going to do shorter shows now. We're not doing the hour-long crap. So we're going to start, just really getting into these topics. We don't have to go team by team by team and just talk about, which offense do I like? Which O-line do I like? Which defensive backs do I like? None of that crap anymore. We're just going to get right into the topics. But first, in brief, we need to start with two things. Antwan Dixon, he's going to Valdosta State. He already announced that he was going to transfer out from Kent State, and now he's officially going to Valdosta. Caleb.
Georgia.
How will he be remembered?
Georgia on my mind. Yeah. MAC fans might be familiar with him. I can understand where if you're not a hardcore fan, you might not be familiar with him. Antwan Dixon has a really cool story in terms of going through adversity and health. He had an issue that landed him in the hospital for on and off for over the course of like a year. He was down to,
I believe it was aplastic
125 pounds at one point in the hospital. Yeah, it was. I know it was anemia. I couldn't remember. So aplastic anemia. That's right. So Dixon has been granted the 6-year of eligibility to go play. He's going to play at Valdosta State, a little bit closer to his Florida home. Very cool story for Dixon. Maybe he's like a star receiver at a place like Valdosta State. I don't know what his status would have been with Kent State. I was surprised to see he was gone. Alex was actually the one who pointed it out to me that he had left. So
Dixon entered the portal shortly after the MAC announced it was going to have a spring season. Even after the MAC said that it was going to come back to the fall, Antwan Dixon didn't come back. But he's been with the program for so long. He was a Haynes kid anyways. He came to the program wanting to break Bree Archer's records, came way short of that, obviously, because of health concerns. That's part of it. And I kind of want to point out, I talked to him once a couple years ago when I was still living in Indiana. He had suffered this aplastic anemia before. It wasn't the first time he had to deal with it. So he knew, how to train and get back onto the football field because he had to do that in high school. And it came back and got him in the ass again in college. So he said that kind of helped him train mentally and physically to get back onto the field, and he stayed active that whole time. But ultimately fell short of his goals, but he still was a contributor when he came back when it was under a new regime and all that, and still played well, even through the bowl game with Dustin Crum. I think he led the team in receptions that game or something like that. Sucks that Antwan Dixon didn't, reach the heights that he wanted to, but he had a fun career, and I'll miss him, but it happens. And I hope he has fun at Valdosta State, even if he isn't a star receiver. Outside of the Mid-American Conference, but not totally outside of the confines of the Mid-American Conference, the Big Ten already canceled a football game.
I mean,
that is and is not, but still is a MAC preview. Just wanted to say that.
And Wisconsin, without going into it too much, has some of the – if you look at a map of like a color-coded map of who is struggling the most with the virus per 100,000 people of the population, Wisconsin is among the worst in the country in a lot of its counties. So it's very obvious that it wasn't ever taken serious at a state level. Wisconsin's got some issues, and the Big Ten's going to face a lot of issues. The MAC will too. Who knows what that looks like? We'll get to that later.
Hey, speaking of me talking about MAC previews that are and aren't previews, the season starts in less than a week. And with that said, the coaches of the Mid-American Conference were so polite to put their brains at work for us, and they created media content. It's
a thing to talk about. It's something for the message boards.
Yeah, look at this. We got ticks. Coaches put their opinions out there for us to argue about. And they were honest.
Can I take any shots at Toledo already? Is that a thing? Are we allowed to do that?
Not yet.
Well, this isn't fair. Don't see how this is fair.
You got to wait for the other shoe to drop. Total disclaimer here. We are talking on Wednesday night, I believe. My days are all confused.
It's a Wednesday. It is.
Yeah. Today is COVID, day 290. If you have already visited Mac Football Forever on YouTube, 1, thank you. 2, thank you for subscribing. I know you did.
You did.
We have already uploaded the East preview, the West preview. TBD, it's getting there. Trust me. So this episode right here might be up before the West. I'm not going to apologize for that. I already did that on Twitter, so
I won't apologize for art.
But let's start with the East. Miami leads the way with six first place votes, 64 total points. Buffalo is the clear second place finisher. Ohio's kind of right behind, followed by Kent State with no first place picks. Bowling Green, then Akron with 1. I want to know what the rest of Tomar's palette said.
Well, I mean, let's just take a look at this. Miami. So you're not surprised, right? I'm not surprised. Well, no one's surprised, right?
No, I mean, I would pick Miami too. I think I did pick Miami.
You did. You did pick Miami.
But Miami, Buffalo, I have no qualms. I have no qualms
Sure.
with those two being those two. It doesn't matter if they're flip-flopped or the way they are. I'm cool with it. Makes sense. Miami returns a lot of the right pieces. I just would assume that Kent State would have got a vote or two. But it's okay.
Yeah, and part of me wants to have a longer discussion that we won't have, but just in passing, I like thinking about the motivation factor of it. Of if you're a coach, do you pick your team because if you don't believe in your team, then what are you even doing? Of course, you pick them to win the conference, or do you use it as a motivational factor by not choosing them and saying, "Well, nobody picked us to win, nobody believed in us," which is so many athlete and coaches' mantra of using that as motivation. No one
don't really care too much to cut too much into the East. The West, very fun as always. The winner is Toledo, but the winner doesn't have the most first place votes. Love when that happens.
When was the last time NIU was picked to finish last in the West?
Oh man, not recently enough.
Oh my goodness, that's such a bizarre thing to look at and see that. And I don't think people are wrong to. I don't think the coaches are wrong to look at it that way. If it was a matter of East versus West and who's going to have the worst record if they said NIU, that would be like whoa. But I mean, there's no reason to expect them to be better than Eastern Michigan, is there?
Well, I mean, as the great philosopher OMC once said, "How bizarre, how bizarre."
Toledo has now been picked 6 times to win the conference in the last 10 years, I want to say.
I don't know. I don't keep up with it anymore.
It's at least 5 times. It's at least 5 times in the last 10 years that Toledo's won. Because I read Ashley Bastock from the Toledo Blade wrote something today about whether they've met expectations or not in the years they've been picked. Obviously, the championship came in 2017, so they met that expectation that year. But I mean, NIU gets picked to finish third every other year, and they still find a way to have the best record or like tie for the best record or whatever. So, as far as it stands, looking at the standings, I really have no qualms with the West at all. It's just the Toledo bit still annoys me, and not even that I think people are wrong. It's more just it's kind of just like been there, seen it before. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like the reasons that may be leading for people to believe in Toledo. Why aren't you doing the same for NIU? I don't know. But Toledo's also in year 5 with Jason Cando, who was with the last head coach before that. NIU, totally different. So I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't expect it. NIU should not even sniff the top of the conference.
Also, which one of those teams won last year?
I mean, Western. But
No, not Western. I'm talking NIU Toledo.
NIU won in the Glass Bowl last year. When Toledo was fighting for a MAC championship game.
So they had something to fight for too. Okay.
So now looking at like the way the schedule shakes out, I mean, you've got your one cross division game, and then you look at the West and who they're playing. I mean, them just beating up on each other. I think you could have Toledo, you can have Western, you can have. I don't think it's out of the question to say Ball State, but I mean, yeah, I don't expect Ball State to win the West, but I don't think you can throw them out the window. I mean, where do you stand on that? Like, that's something I would like to hear your opinion on, Alex. Is it fair to expect that Ball State could compete for the West?
No.
So we're in opposing camps in that respect.
Yeah, I have no reason to believe Ball State would come close. I don't care.
Thank you for this analysis. Yeah, I mean, I think with their is your hang up just, they don't have a winning squad built up enough, like the foundation isn't there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just they don't have the playmakers for it. They have a good team. They don't have they don't have the playmakers for it. You need some playmakers like on offense too. Like for Ball State, you can say like, oh, but what about these other teams that win on defense? I get it, yeah, but Ball State, like they still need like the right pieces on both sides to make it work.
Yeah, I mean, with the strengths of Ball State, it's a secondary, and I mean,
it's a good secondary.
Yeah, and what's a good secondary if you don't have a particularly strong defensive line?
I've seen many good secondaries.
If something gets in the way for Toledo, what do you think it is?
Besides COVID, I think that maybe it just might be an issue with like not having the right chemistry yet and timing issues on offense. I think that's kind of the easiest out for me here because they're not returning any great quarterback and they're not returning any quarterback with great reps. It's kind of hard to do in a COVID year.
All right, and I'm here with George Thomas, Akron Beacon Journal. George, I guess as somebody in the MAC media sphere, as long as anybody covering Akron football, Akron athletics looks like for you during the course of a pandemic and a lot of uncertainty right now.
Let's just, there are going to be a lot of Zoom interviews. Let's try that.
Sure.
The MAC is being as stringent or even more stringent than the NFL. There are no fans allowed in the stadium as of today when we're doing this interview. No fans, no tailgating, nothing. We've decided, and because they're doing Zoom-only interviews, there's really no point to me being at the stadium. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. When I'm going to have access to every game on a television with instant replay and a better view, actually. So it's going to look like that for football. It's probably going to look like that for basketball, and there are going to be a lot of people doing it. I'd be surprised if ESPN and their partners, I shouldn't call CBS Sports Network a partner, but I'd be surprised if they were sending actual broadcast teams, play-by-play and color guys out to sites to cover games or broadcast games, especially given in Ohio. I don't know what it's like in Illinois. I know it's out of control in Michigan. The coronavirus is surging right now. So that makes a lot of things iffy. That's a long answer to a very short question.
Oh, sure. But I mean, like, we're all in a situation where we're trying to evaluate 10 line items down the line of stuff that we don't even know is going to happen yet. So talking with you previously, talking with Alex for about like even just basketball, like we weren't even like super interested in the schedule, but it was, well, how can they even decide what the non-conference schedule looks like? We're all just assuming, oh, well, there will be non-conference schedule games, but they're now getting taken off the schedule at the national level. So we're looking at MAC football season with a lot of uncertainty, the fewest games of any conference, any major conference in Division I FBS football. Akron comes in off of just a year of growing pains. In the span of a few short years, George is now seen, and he can talk to this, team that went to the MAC championship game back to a team that is absolute square one. So, George, what is that kind of experience of watching Akron football start to see that exceed its expectations, go through a coaching change, and then kind of be back at peg one, I guess?
The key to that season after going to the MAC championship game was sustainability. And Coach Terry Bowden and his staff weren't able to sustain what they'd started. Now, mind you, I'll be the first one to admit them getting to the MAC championship game shocked a lot of people. They didn't seem to have a lot of people waiting to fill shoes the following year. And in fairness, they got hit with a bunch of injuries too. Sustainability was a problem there. By the next year, you could see what was coming.
Going forward from where a team looks at its worst, like it did last year. I mean, as someone who covered NIU, a team that was struggling last year, you see the Zips come to Akron or come to DeKalb. NIU with its backup quarterback, I know previously the starter Marcus Childers, just really puts a whooping on Akron at that point, and it seems like things are lost for that team. And to what extent was last year either a lost year or just a year for just aiming for growth wherever they could get it?
I'm not going to call it a lost year because Coach Tom Arth, he knows Northeast Ohio, and I think that ultimately that's going to pay dividends. He went to St. Ignatius High School in Cleveland, which is a football powerhouse, played quarterback there. I think you're looking at a 1 or 2 year transition for him to get his guys on the field. Mm-hmm. And even there are a couple holdovers from the Bowden era. I don't know if you've heard of Bubba Arslanian. He was in Bowden's second to last recruiting class, and Bubba's fully bought into what Arth is selling. So that should tell you something about that coaching staff. It's just going to be a bumpy road for probably another season.
In a lot of ways, you kind of have to push against the grain of this being like a lost year. I mean, you can't, as a coach, come into a season like this and say, oh, well, whatever happens, happens. You're motivated to make something work this year, whether you think, okay, it's a shortened season, we can win a championship, or, we have to use this year to be a bit better prepared for next season. So as far as Akron's concerned, do you think this year has a particular mindset for this group of players, or anything you've heard from this Zips group that would lend you to believe they're particularly motivated going into this year?
Oh, they're definitely motivated, and that's the weirdest thing. I mean, there is no shortage of enthusiasm, which coming off what they did last year is kind of surprising. Yeah. I think that team is 70% underclassmen or something like that. Mm-hmm. It's a really high number, and the competition is high among those freshmen and sophomores to get on the field, and they want to play for Arth. And the best way I can describe Tom Arth is this way. In his introductory press conference, which is going on 2 years ago now, I wanted to run through a wall for him. Now, I have a unique vantage point because he coached at John Carroll University, which is 10 minutes from my home. A friend of mine's son plays for him. So I had a perspective going in. So, can they get to a championship game? No, but I think they'll settle for winning a couple games because it's improvement.
And so for anybody who maybe isn't familiar with Northeastern Ohio, John Carroll plays good football in a very good Division III conference that turns out a lot of MAC caliber coaches, people who get invested in high-level football, and they're playing high-level football themselves at school like Mount Union, or at places like John Carroll. Of course, Mount Union is the one that comes to mind, but really good football, and they obviously thought a lot of Arth's background and the staff that he brought along coming from there. He was at Chattanooga before, right? That was the stop.
Yeah, it was John Carroll, Chattanooga. A little bit of trivia for you. He is the only coach to beat Mount Union in years in this area. I don't know the exact number of years, but he beat Mount Union in a regular season game.
You don't have a lot of coaches that beat Mount Union, and Arth does have the pedigree, and you're kind of just if you're an Akron fan, you're just hoping that you see that realized at this level in a couple of years. Outside of that, but you mentioned Bubba Arslanian, Cato Nelson is back as it currently stands. So we've got him back. Anything else people should be looking at other than just that high level of energy, young guys wanting to get on the field?
Well, see, Cato had shoulder surgery. So, we'll see how well he's throwing by next week. They like their outside linebacker. Okay, Michael Scott, Ryan McClain, Julian Richardson. They'll be in the linebacker rotation. They like them a lot. They're going to take some hits. They're going to take some without a doubt, some licks. But I think they're taking this 6-game season, going to use it as a launching pad to next year while winning a couple games. That's the best way to put it.
Other than that, George, any parting words about what we should expect about MAC football and then just this odd year overall?
Well, I don't think you can expect a lot of stellar play in the first 2 weeks. If you're looking for something polished the first 2 weeks, nah.
Kaleb, you had a question that you had kind of asked me at the end of our West preview recording, and I kind of want you to ask it in this session.
I'm kind of just thinking we've already had to kind of confront this idea of if the MAC is playing the fewest amount of games. It's playing 6 games before a prospective MAC championship game. And a lot of say a couple of these teams don't play 6 games. They play 5. Maybe some of them play 4. They have to quarantine. They have to deal with that. In what situation is a MAC championship game no longer relevant? Does a shortened season with if you're playing a 4-win team versus a 3-win team playing a MAC championship game, does the season have significance? And how significant? So we already know, for one, that there are big surges in the Midwest. It seems fairly plausible. We're going to have multiple, if not most of the teams have a game canceled at least. So in this case, since there's no wiggle room in the schedule, how does all of these things considered, how does it affect the MAC title race, and at what point is championship level football even a thing in a year that's so screwed up?
It's already, I don't know, it's already shoddy. Because what are these guys fighting for anyways? This is the MAC title is the height of it all. Anything after it, bowl game, playoffs, none of that stuff matters. There's no. So I don't.
Right.
I don't know. I'm not gonna say that it doesn't matter, because it does. I'm still gonna tune in. I'm still gonna enjoy it. But am I gonna sit here and if if a 3-1 Western makes it in, and 4-2, other West school sits at home, should they gripe and complain? Yeah, sure. But I don't know. It's all stupid anyways. It's, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I really don't know how to answer it. I'm sorry. I wish I did. I wish I had a better answer, but it'll still be important. It'll still be fun to watch, but I don't know how. I don't know.
I don't know. And I don't have this mindset that I think a lot of people have of I get lost in the sport or it's a distraction. It's sure, it is a distraction, but that's not why I watch it. I watch it because it's stupid fun. It is stupid fun to watch a team that has no business with another team competing in a meaningful game, watching the emotions drain from the face of this team's fans that are just what are we doing against this team? What is happening? Why? And then watching these guys go out there and just cause chaos. And whether that's a 74-72 game in 7 overtimes or an absolute blowout on a Tuesday night with 2,000 people in attendance, kind of obsessed with this stuff. So it doesn't feel like a distraction to me because I can't get it out of my head how bad things could be. But it matters. And it matters to so many of these people that they were willing to say, well, who knows what's certain in the spring. We don't even want to spend more time. We want to play now. Obviously, the emotional factor of it is there. So, yeah, it has to matter. So, all of these things considered, we've picked our divisional winners. We've seen the polls. Alex, who's your champion? Who's winning the abbreviated nonsense season that we're about to experience?
Eastern, of course.
Stop that.
Well, stop
that now. You stop that.
Well, you told me to pick a winner for a game that doesn't matter. I'm picking Eastern.
I thought I was joking, and it actually says Eastern in the document that we were both looking at. Of course, if you had tuned into our previous episode, you would have seen that Alex had a 4-team tie at the top of the West, which, of course, why wouldn't we expect?
All right, Kaleb, if Buffalo's so good, what makes them so good? They couldn't do it last time. They couldn't do it last year. Do you think they have the offense now? You think Tyree Jackson's just going to walk through that door again? Think Anthony Johnson's just going to walk through that door again?
Listen, I'm not sitting here saying Buffalo's a perfect team. No team in the MAC is a perfect team except for Western Michigan from a couple of years ago, and that's about as perfect as you're going to get in the MAC. And then a couple of NIU teams, and outside of that, it's like, ooh, I mean, no, you're not going to find the perfect MAC team. But so Buffalo is far from it. They've got issues. They've lost games they should have won. Alex has been more vocal about that than a lot of people who actually care about Buffalo football. So, I mean, for me, it's just the strength in position groups. It's the strength at a position like running back. You've got that. You've got a returning cadre of, defensive ends between Riggins back, Kuntz back, just some very good players all around. I don't know that they're more put together than a Toledo. They could be. They think you could make an argument either way. Or maybe a Western, whatever. But this is the reason I had Western against Buffalo in the MAC championship games, just because I thought how they excelled at particular position groups was going to be the reason that carried them to a better season than their peers. For Buffalo, it's defensive end, running back, linebacker, and then improvement at some other spots like quarterback. And for the West, it was just having a good group of wide receivers, running backs, and front seven type guys. So that's all.
All right, Caleb, is there anything else that we need to tackle here? You see what I did there? We did a sports sword. I said tackle. We're talking about football.
You, sir, you watch football. Got it.
Yeah, you could say I turned on the ESPN. All right, okay. Sly guy over there. All right, is there anything else that we gotta step up in the pocket and throw?
It smells like it's Tobias Funk thing.
Is there anything else that we have to standard down?
Yeah, there's nothing else to sack. There's no pocket to fill. We've covered our bases. Oh no.
Well, if we've done all of our zone coverages, then I guess next time we talk, we'll have to do. We'll have to look at the week 1 games, obviously, but not yet because as of right now, the 2 deeps aren't out. I want to wait for the 2 deeps. That way I can see if anybody's quarantined.
I feel cheated. How can we just not have I want 2 deeps, Alex. I want depth charts.